the spiritual path really doesn't lead anywhere if we don't have the courage to go where it leads. And it's not easy sometimes. There's a lot of pressure on each of us, whether from ourselves or externally, usually both, to live a certain life. And it's not all overt. It's implicit as well. We don't want to hurt people. People on the path are compassionate. We don't want to be unloved. We, just like every being, really wants to be loved. We don't want to be misunderstood. Everybody wants to be understood. We don't want to be belittled. We want people to see the fullness in our being. It's natural. And there are many other qualities, but those are essential. And the problem is, all of those desires affect our ability to know ourselves. So really, it takes courage to go beyond who you think you are to discover who you are. Because if you give up who you think you are, there is that moment when you're just naked. You have no self. And it is, from what I've seen, impossible to go forward on the path without experiencing that moment of complete unknowing of who and what you are, where you're going, what you're becoming, and where you've come from. And it takes a lot of courage to go through that. And as soon as you begin that process, and it is a spiritual process, all of those other factors that I mentioned will begin to push against you. The people who will not understand and will be hurt will project that hurt upon you. The people who do not see your being will begin to see you in a smaller way so that they can digest who they think you are. And there are a lot of external reactions like that. Those who love you won't love you. And it is what is metaphorically called the desert. There's a reason why East and West, so many of the prophets and prophetesses, known and unknown to the world, have spent so much time in the desert. Because it is there that one can discover oneself. Now, it doesn't mean we have to leave here and go to, the Mojave or something. But we have to have the courage to spend that time being unseen, unloved, unknown, unprotected, uncared for. And I'm sharing this because if we don't understand that this is part of the path, I don't mean Sufism, I mean the path, then when this comes, in whatever degree, we are very shocked and we can do self-harm. For no reason except that It's so unfamiliar. It goes against everything that we have built in us as a persona to survive in this world. The very goal that we thought we were seeking, we have to walk away from. It's no accident that the Buddha was born a prince. Remember I told you the story about he never saw poverty, he never saw disease, he never saw old age. And then his teacher snuck him out of the palace and he saw it. And what did the Buddha do? He left his wife, he left his newborn child, he left the palace, he left his name. You know, he wasn't always called the Buddha. He had a name. He left it all. And he, like so many before and after, went into the desert. In his case, what was the desert? Well, he went from great guru to great guru to great guru, and each one said to him at a certain point, I've taught you everything I know. And he would leave and go to the next, and the next. And at a certain point, in essence, every great one said to him, that's it, that's all we know. Implicit in that is the rest you have to discover. So he sat at Bodh Gaya. You can go there today and sit under the tree of the tree of the tree. It's there. And you can sit in the Mahabodhi temple. Anybody ever been in the Mahabodhi temple? Some of you. You haven't? Oh. You know, it was buried. It's a huge stupa. And it used to be 12 feet high. Now it's 80 feet. And they didn't add on. It was all buried. And it was very symbolic, you know. It was what happened is they began to have revelation. He began to have revelation. By the way, if you ever go there, in the middle of the temple, there's a Buddha that's about probably 15 feet high, beautifully painted by Singye. Yeah, our friend. A friend of ours who is the last living Thangka painter of a certain tradition. And he lives in San Francisco. Anyway, so the Buddha walked out. You know, he had the courage, and it's a different kind of courage. It's not the courage of the ego that says, I will. It is a force that overpowers our fear. What Inayat Khan used to call the answer that uproots the question. It's not an answer, but it's an energy that's so powerful that we know if we don't do this, we'll die. Not physically, maybe physically, but we'll die. And so you withstand the arrows from within and without, and you have the courage to tread the path. I'm also sharing this because it can be done on a daily basis. You don't have to leave physically. You don't have to go into the desert. But every day you can be conscious of having the courage to be who you are called to be in any situation. And it removes a lot of our conditioning automatically. Our conditioning, our habit structure is really powerful. Really, really powerful. And you know, it's interesting, spiritual path attracts smart people. And it's such a curse. Really is. And I remember Murshid Sam, he used to say, I've got all the answers and my IQ is 50.1. And he was joking, but what was he really saying? He knows everything from a different level. And our powerful minds really believe our stories about who we are. And they add to them and they color them. I had one of the real turning points in my life. And it happened almost without my noticing. But it was such a powerful energy that it still goes forward. And it just happened. I was part of it, but I wasn't the cause of it. And we too often believe we're the cause of what goes on in our life. And we don't recognize that we're in a relationship, the most fundamental relationship of our life on earth. And it is the relationship with our, whatever you want to call it, our soul, our spirit, God, the infinite. There are many names. And we ignore that relationship, or we minimize it. Well, that all comes later. But first, I have to earn a living, or whatever you use to fill in that blank. And I could sound like an old preacher and tell you, you're going to regret it. That you didn't put that first. But I'm not an old preacher, fortunately. So I don't know if we'll regret it or not regret it. I don't threaten or bludgeon, but it's an invitation, not from me. An invitation from our own being to recognize this is why we came to earth. To experience our true being beyond anybody else's story and beyond our own. Our story has a lot of shoulds and a lot of musts that have been either gently or violently bludgeoned into us. Or maybe both, I don't know. But to live a life with no story really is whatever you said that website was, Shams, about freedom. It's not circumstances that catch us. It's us. And I said we have good minds. Why aren't we using them for that which ostensibly we say is the most important thing in our life? Maybe it's really not the most important thing. And if that's the case, at least we should admit it. The path is nice. It's something that I like to do when Shahabuddin comes to town or on Sundays or, but that's not a path. A path is something that we are in a relationship with beyond our last breath on earth.